Topic: Support systems in animals, joints, ligaments, tendons and muscles. Aims of lesson. At the end of this lesson you should be able to define basic terminology such as joints, ligaments, tendons, etc. Differentiate between a joint, ligament and tendon. Label drawings and identify the different joints and their functions of the human skeleton. Know the structure of voluntary skeletal muscles. Know the diseases that affect the skeleton. Introduction. You have studied the human skeleton in Lesson 2 in Grade 10. You have studied the concepts of tendons and ligaments under the section Animal Tissues. Revise the section on the human skeleton in Lesson 2. Concepts and skills. Below are definitions of some of the terms that you will study under this section. Use your textbook and underline all the new terms/words that you encounter while studying through this section. Use the glossary in your textbook to define these new terms/words. Note, at least 2 marks are awarded if you can define a term correctly in a test or examination. Tendon, connective tissue that joins muscle to bone. Ligament, connective tissue that joins bone to bone. Joint, junction in the skeleton where bones meet and are joined by ligaments or cartilage. Sarcolemma, membrane that encloses the separate muscle fibers of a skeletal muscle. Osteoporosis, a disease of the bones characterized by a decrease in bone density. Rickets, a deficiency disease in children where the bones of the skeleton become soft, bend and weaken the skeleton. Arthritis, a disease that causes severe pain and a loss of movement in the joints. Joints. Type of joint. Description. Example. Fixed joint. Does not allow any movement. Sutures between the bones of the cranium. Partly movable joint. Allows a slight degree of movement between the vertebrae and the pubic bones in the pelvic girdle. Freely movable, synovial joint. Allows free movement. Elbow and knee joint, bones of the wrist and ankle joint, shoulder and hip joints, joint between atlas and axis. Structure of a synovial joint. Use your textbook and diagram below and describe the structure of a synovial joint. Types of synovial joints. Ball and socket joint. In this joint the head of one bone fits into socket of another, e.g. shoulder and hip joint. This joint allows movement in any direction. Hinge joint. This joint permits movement in one plane at right angles to the bones involved, e.g. the elbow and knee joints. Pivot joint. In this joint one bone rotates around another, e.g. rotation of the atlas around the axis, which makes the turning movement of the head possible. Gliding joint. Flat articular surface of one bone slides over that of another, e.g. the bones of the wrist and ankle joint. Skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscles are attached to the skeleton by tendons and they bring about movements of parts of the body. Each skeletal muscle is built up of a large number of muscle fibers and these fibers are bound together in bundles by connective tissue called the perimysium. The separate muscular bundles are bound together by connective tissue, the epimysium. A single muscle fiber is an elongated cylindrical muscle cell that is enclosed by a membrane, called the sarcolemma. Each muscle cell has cytoplasm, a number of oval nuclei and mitochondria. Each muscle cell consists of thousands of myofibrils. Myofibrils consist of 2 types of protein filaments, myosin and actin. Myosin filaments are thicker and appear darker and actin filaments are thinner and appear lighter. The region between 2 Z-lines is called a sarcomere. Muscle contraction. During contraction the thin actin filaments slide past the thicker myosin filaments. The Z-lines move closer to each other. The shortened sarcomere leads to the shortening of the myofibrils and the muscle therefore shortens. Antagonistic muscles, e.g., the biceps and triceps. Skeletal muscles are often arranged in pairs, so that when the one contracts, the other one relaxes. These muscles are known as antagonistic muscles. The biceps and triceps of the upper arm are examples of antagonistic muscles. When the biceps contract and the triceps relaxes, the elbow joint bends and the forearm is lifted. When the triceps contracts and the biceps relaxes, the elbow joint extends and the forearm is lowered. Diseases affecting the skeleton. Use the notes in your textbook or the internet and conduct research of the following diseases that can affect the skeleton, i.e., rickets, osteoporosis, and arthritis. Know the meaning of instructional verbs in test and examination questions, e.g. Instructional verb. Meaning. Name. Give the name of something. Differentiate. Use differences to qualify between two or more categories. Tabulate. Draw a table and indicate the answers as direct pairs. Describe. State in sentences the main points of a process. Explain. Give your answer in a cause-effect or statement and reason sequence. Compare. Give similarities and differences between concepts. Answer the following questions. Question 1. Discuss synovial joints by referring to the structure of these joints as well as a short explanation of the different types of synovial joints found in the human body. Question 2. The diagram below is part of the skeleton of a professional soccer player stretching before an important game. 2.1 Name the skeletal bones labeled A and D. 2.2 Using the letters in the diagram, give an example of antagonistic muscles that work together as a pair. 2.3 What kind of synovial joint does B represent? 2.4 Make a labeled drawing to illustrate a typical synovial joint. Question 3. Read the passage below and answer the questions that follow. 3.1 A joint is a region where two or more bones meet. Name the connective tissue that joins these bones. 3.2 Name three classes into which joints may be categorized. 3.3 Describe the condition of the joint if a person has osteoarthritis. 3.4 Suggest one reason why osteoarthritis is more common in middle-aged people. 3.5 Joint replacements are becoming more common amongst people suffering from osteoarthritis. Alloys of cobalt, chromium and titanium are usually used in these procedures. Explain why is iron not used? Question 4. The ligament in the knee of a rugby player was torn and his shoulder disrupted. As a result of the injury, the player is out of action for 6 weeks. The team manager informed the player that during this period he would receive only half of his salary. 4.1 Give one function of a ligament. 4.2 Explain your view of the team manager's decision to reduce a player's salary by half during their injuries. 4.3 Name and distinguish between two arthritis diseases with regard to A. What the diseases imply. B. Where it occurs in the body. Common errors made by learners in examinations. Learners not familiar with basic terminology. Learners do not understand instructional verb /s in a question, e.g. the difference between describe and explain. Learners not able to provide correct labels to drawings /illustrations or make drawings of joints and muscles. Activity/assessment. Complete the activity/questions on the sections on the human skeleton in your textbook. Consolidation. Define all the terminology relevant to the topic /s covered in this lesson. Label and draw diagrams. Give functions of tendons and ligaments. Differentiate between the types of joints. Note, the knowledge and skills gained in this section will help you to have a better understanding of the following sections that you still need to deal with in grade 12. Human evolution. Values. By studying and learning about the human skeleton, you will develop a deep understanding of the diseases that may affect the human skeleton, e.g. rickets, osteoporosis, arthritis, etc.